This is Kat with the Kat Haas Outdoors Podcast. I'm so excited to share today's episode with you.
So, Julie, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. This is so amazing of you to take the time to come online and chat with me. And I think uh, what we are going to talk about today is really going to be of interest to both of our followers. Um, so I know that you started off in the Army. Tell us a little bit about your time in the Army. What was that like?
Oh gosh, it seems like forever ago. I joined the Army right out of high school. I was actually recruited to shoot for the Army shooting team after I met one of their coaches at my first national championships as a junior in high school. And I wanted to be a pro shooter and I wanted to win a nationals. And so I knew that was probably going to be my best and only way to do so. And so I came home after that match and told my parents I was joining the military, and they were a bit surprised. It was not the career path they expected. And I, right after graduation, my birthday, I joined up and I went to Fort McClellan, Alabama for basic training in military police school, and then was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia with the Army Marksmanship Unit for about 8 years.
Oh, wow. So you were in for 8 years. That's awesome. I
Yeah, it
know
was.
a lot of people, they either like do one contract and get out, or they stay in for life. They hit that 20-year mark or longer and stick around.
Absolutely. And it was, it's the same thing for, people at the AMU. You either make that decision before you hit 10 years, because if once you hit 10, you might as well stay in, right? You might
Yep.
as well get your pension. And so I decided to get out after September 11th. I wanted to pursue a career outside of, the Army. And it took a little bit of time to do that, but it worked out.
So what did you do after you got out of the Army?
So I was planning on becoming an English teacher, of all things. I was a little burnt out. It was one of the things about being at the Army Marksmanship Unit is you have to be in all in 100% of the time, and I had some leadership challenges and some basically just got tired of not having control over my own destiny, especially as a shooter, and I got burnt out. I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna be finished. And so I signed up to attend Auburn University and classes, and long story short, they lost my paperwork, so I wasn't able to start the semester on time. And I got a position working for Glock Sports Shooting Foundation, and I fell in love with shooting all over again. So it was meant to be. And it was a very stressful time in my life as a young person trying to figure everything out and figure out how to pay the bills. But it really did work all out. So
Yeah, I feel like, that kind of age range is when it's the best time to either you find something that you're just comfortable with and you just stay there, or to like really take risks, and either you do really well or you fall flat on your face and you try something else.
it's such a good learning experience time. From 18 to 28, basically, I got to shoot and do everything that I loved, with being single and traveling the world and all of that. But it really helps you kind of figure out what's important to you. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's I kind of did the same thing as when I had my daughter. I switched careers right after she was born, and it was very much like, well, I could go back to my nice stable office job where I was literally working to pay daycare and not see my daughter, or I
Yep.
can change careers and work from home and be able to be with her all the time. And
Yeah.
3 years later, I'm still in the same career with both kids.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
And
It
then,
seems daunting at the time, but when you make the decision, you go in, say, all right, I'm gonna try it and see how it goes. The dividends pay off.
yeah, and for me, it was a little easier having a spouse that had that steady, stable paycheck so that I was able to take that risk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Certainly helps.
So tell me about some of the competitions that you've done, different titles, stuff like that.
A lot. I started out shooting primarily practical shooting sports, so I'll throw a lot of acronyms out there. But USPSA and IPSC were primarily what I competed in. But basically, it's a very physical sport, handgun shooting, where you shoot through different scenarios, windows, doorways, and you never really shoot the same thing twice. And then because of the Army, I was exposed to other matches like the Bianchi Cup, Steel Challenge, IDPA, and it's been a wild ride. There are so many different shooting sports now compared to what there were 30 years ago, and they've grown so much, and it's exciting to see. Three gun has made a comeback, all of that. So it's really cool to see not only how much we have been able to grow the shooting sports, but also how people are shooting. Back when I started, everybody was using very, very custom guns, and you had to reload your own ammunition. But now there are so many sports out there that you can literally go to a gun shop, buy a pistol, grab a couple extra magazines, and start to play and have fun. So it's really neat to see that evolution of it all, and I've been fairly successful throughout it. So it's been a good thing.
Yeah, our first Christmas in Colorado, Wes had gotten me a Smith & Wesson MMP 1522,
Awesome.
and
So much
then
fun.
I literally took it to a match that January.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so smart that we've evolved to realize that, oh yeah, you can have a ton of fun with very inexpensive firearms, and especially 22. Come on. How fun was that, right?
Oh yeah. It's 22 is fairly inexpensive. It's easy to find. It can be an indoor match or an outdoor match because you don't have to really worry too much about, bullets going too far.
Right.
Nothing too strong to blow apart steel targets or anything like that. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of really cool people at the range I go to.
Oh, that's great.
So I know you've written a couple of books. What are some of the books that you've written? I know you have a children's book because I bought that for my daughter.
Yes. So my first book is called Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition. And I wrote it back in 2010, I think it was. So it's pretty dated now, but it's basically a primer on how to get started in the shooting sports. So I go through all of the different types of shooting sports out there. It was like the number one question I would get in emails and on social media. How do I get started? What different sports are there? What are all these acronyms? And so that book kind of breaks everything down and addresses the kind of basic skills that you'll need to get started. And then my second book is Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules, a children's book about gun safety. And it basically um, is, talks about the universal message of avoidance. We don't obviously want children playing with firearms,
Mhm.
but it goes into a little bit more detail and shows parts of a firearm so you can talk about these things with your children, give them a little bit more knowledge, and kind of take away the taboo that can happen when they get curious. And so those are basically the two published books I have, and then I have an ebook on shooting while pregnant as well. So yeah.
Okay, I didn't know about the ebook. That's really interesting. A lot of the groups that I'm in on Facebook for, hunting and shooting, all the
Absolutely.
time I see posts about, what kind of shooting can I do while I'm pregnant? What should I be careful with? And the doctors, like, when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was like, okay, look, like, I still hunt, I still shoot, like, how long am I able to keep doing that for? Do I need to stop at a certain point? Like, I don't want to cause any hearing damage in utero. And even my doctor couldn't answer those questions. And her husband was a hunter.
Yeah.
And she couldn't answer those questions for me. She's like, well, if you notice that when you're shooting, baby's moving around and reacting badly, then maybe it's time to stop. And it's like, but that's not a solid answer, really.
Right, right. Well, it's we're not a very studied demographic, are we?
No.
Pregnant women who shoot firearms and hunt. And the ebook kind of doesn't give you any definitive answers of whether you should or shouldn't, but at least gives you some things to think about. Like, okay, this is a personal decision for you and your partner, right? You guys have to make this very big decision on when and how to stop. And, I know moms that stopped shooting immediately, and I know moms that shot all the way through, and their kids turned out fine, both of them. So it is a very personal decision, and you just have to know the facts and be smart about it and figure out, one, you get to have your husband or your partner clean your guns all the time because you shouldn't be handling any solvents. So there's that plus, right? Um, but again, paying attention to your body and the things that we do know about lead and other contaminant exposure and how risky that can be. So
Yeah, I think when I was pregnant with my daughter, I stopped like going to the range and stopped like shotgun shooting
mhm.
probably around that 24 to 30 week mark. Just
Yeah.
because every time I would go, like I could tell that she wasn't quite happy with the constant noise and vibrations.
Hmm.
But like I still went hunting because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well you can have like one or two shots and that's okay. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I shot my first antelope buck when I was 5.5 months pregnant,
That's
laying on
awesome.
the ground on a giant baby bump.
Yeah, no, my husband and I went hunting with my husband for a mule deer, and I was very pregnant at the time. And again, it was one shot and no issues. But there are other factors to think about. Obviously, you were younger when you had your children, and if you're older and you're at a higher risk pregnancy, these are all very personal things that you kind of have to weigh out. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is delivering a healthy baby.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's definitely the most important part.
Absolutely.
And then one of the other things I wanted to ask about is like advice for new shooters. Like, because there are so many women that, like, when I got started shooting 22 steel competitions, it was only because I saw that a local gun range did 22 steel, and I was like adamant that I wanted to shoot 22 steel competitions. So Wes bought me, my little 22 rifle, and I started shooting, and it was great. But I had no idea where to start outside of that. Like going to a range and training with your gun to be ready for competitions, making sure you've got the correct gear. What are some tips that you would give new shooters or even new competition shooters?
Sure. I think the biggest thing, whether you're male or female, is familiarity, right? You have to learn how to operate whatever firearm you're going to use. And that's through dry fire, it's through reading the manual, it's watching YouTube videos, it's getting some sort of introductory training if you can get that wherever you are. But the one thing that you'll notice anytime you go to a match is that you'll see people who have superior gun handling skills. And that's because they've built the confidence of repetition over and over again. And there are very specific rules at matches about safety, where you can point your firearm, as well as what you can do with your trigger finger and how you need to manipulate the firearm safely. That is my cat, so I hope that's not a problem. Hello, Kitty. She's always making an appearance at times. But after that, there's really no, I feel like a lot of people think that, oh, I need to be able to have this amount of confidence and skills before I can go to a competition. And it's kind of like the same thing with the gym. A lot of people think, oh, well, I need to lose 20 pounds before I feel comfortable going to the gym. Well, no, you need to go to the gym, right? If you want to lose weight and feel more healthy, and that's your particular goal, right? And so getting started in a match and going to compete, and being exposed to different shooters and learning about the sport is definitely a benefit. She is very loud. I'm sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
Do you want a cameo, Webley? she's very loud and demanding.
That's all right. And then so being, a competitive shooter like you are, like professional competitive shooter and traveling all over the country, how do you manage that with also having two kids at home?
A great question. It's challenging at times. I have obviously a very good support system at home. But in the early days, it was a lot of, okay, mom's going away for the weekend kind of thing. and my husband took care of everything at home. But as our children have gotten older, we've started to make family shooting trips together. So it's a lot of fun. My girls come to most of our matches now, and my husband shoots too. So we make it a family affair, which is really neat. And I thought that shooting was fun before. Gosh, when you can do it with your whole family, it's really a cool thing.
Yeah, even my daughter Sophie's already started shooting my little 22. I'm like, she was like not even, I think she was barely 2.5, and we went to the range with some friends, and she kept eyeing it because it's the really beautiful like robin's egg blue and black that they came out with. I think at SHOT Show in 2019, I think is when they released that color.
That's about right. Yeah.
And I told Wes, I was like, that's the one I want. I want that color. And he like special ordered it and everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I think that's like a limited distribution thing or something. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But she kept like eyeing it laying on the table, and he was like, do you want to shoot it? And I wish I had gotten pictures of it, because it was absolutely adorable. She has to pull the trigger with her whole hand, but she can do it.
That's cool. Well, it's great that you're teaching them about firearm safety and giving them that experience, because I was a daddy's girl growing up, and I started shooting with him when I was young. But I think about so many parents, moms and dads too, that get to have that experience with their daughters. I mean, typically it's a boy thing, but it's so exciting to see.
Yeah, and I did not grow up in a household that had firearms. My mom was very anti-gun, anti-weapon, for personal reasons, not political, but more personal. And for me to turn out, the way I am, she gets very nervous, because she's like, you have so many firearms in your household, and like, what if Sophie finds one? I was like, well, that's why we're teaching her now about safety, about, you don't touch it unless mom or dad are around, don't pick it up, don't look at it. Like, you can, see it, but we don't touch. And just teaching her a lot of those basics, like, never pointed at anybody, all the basics of firearm safety.
Yep. Well, you had a stove in your house growing up, right?
Yep.
You learn not to burn yourself on the stove. It's the same principle, and that sounds like you're on the same track.
Yeah.
Good thing you had a stove and running water. I'm assuming you had running water.
Yeah. I mean, not everyone does growing up, but
no judging. But yeah.
Yeah, nope. It's like, learning when my mom would bake bread, not to go running through the house when she was baking bread, because it would fall in.
There you go.
Yep. I think that touches on pretty much everything that I had written down, because I thought you joined the Army and then like started shooting, but I didn't know you
no. Yeah, no, I was a little range rat. I hung out with my dad at a very young age. We did everything, whether it was fishing or hunting or shooting. I just loved hanging out with him and that time together. And so it just transitioned to competing, because that's what he loved to do. And yeah, so the Army had its eyes on me, not the other way around.
Now, I know it's your youngest, correct? It's she has a rare medical condition that you do a lot of work for, like raising money and fundraising and stuff like that. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
No, not at all. It's actually my oldest. I have two daughters,
Oh,
but
your
my oldest
oldest.
daughter, yeah, she has a rare disease called juvenile dermatomyositis, and it's an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks the muscles, and so it was quite a shock to us when we discovered that back in 2019. But we are on a very good path, and she's such a trooper. She's my little hunter, and we do raise a lot of money and awareness for a charity called Cure JM, and they do great work. And hopefully one day, other kids that are in the same or similar position won't have as long of a treatment, or more options will be available for them. So that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah. Now, is that something that She'll be receiving treatment for like the rest of her life. I know some autoimmune disorders can be kind of on a spectrum of how hard to treat they are. Sometimes you can have two people with the same disease and one's, living their best life with no treatment and the other one's, at the far end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Well, it is like other autoimmune diseases in that some kids are hit harder than others, and then some kids transition to the adult version, which can be fatal. But there are lots of other kids that are able to go into complete remission. So that's what we're hoping for, obviously. And it's just one of those things that there's so few number of children that have it. You have to kind of beg, borrow, and steal from other autoimmune protocols and treatments to see if you can find medicines that work, and yeah, so it's a road and we're on it.
And I know that's why you didn't do a couple of trade shows for a while there. A lot of people were like, oh, Julie, why aren't you at this show, or why aren't you at that show? So
Because I don't want you getting me sick. Me bringing it home. Yeah, no, and that's the challenge, right? Anytime that you're on any sort of immunotherapy, your immune system is obviously in jeopardy. So for a couple of years there, we didn't travel hardly at all. I mean, I didn't even compete very much, just to make sure, especially during COVID, and all of that, that we just said, you know what, it's way more important that she stays healthy. And but now, thankfully, we're doing pretty good, and she's doing well, and thank God we don't have a worldwide pandemic anymore, and we can do more things. So
I loved the video you guys did, you and Jerry, at SHOT Show this year, where you were trying to like talk about the one lever action. He was just like sitting there messing
I
with.
know. He's so funny. So, people, obviously the Smith& Wesson marketing team, they're brilliant and everything. They're like, we wonder if we can do this. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And he just makes it. That was like one take. Yeah, he was great. He's so funny. He's so fun to be around. So fun.
So, I know you're on the staff for a couple of different shooting teams, but you're also a team captain for Smith& Wesson. Like, how did you come to land on Smith& Wesson out of all the gun companies out there?
Well, I did shoot for obviously Glock for a few years because I was with the Glock Sports Shooting Foundation. But Smith& Wesson stole me away. And funny story is, when I was a junior competitor, Smith& Wesson was one of my first sponsors. So it's funny how everything comes full circle. But let's face it, I'll be honest, being the team captain is just a name thing when you have Jerry Miculek on your team. For a while, I did work and manage the team from the factory as an employee before I transitioned to full-time pro. So I guess I'm still honorary captain, but we know who's the GOAT, right?
Yeah, when you've got someone like that on the team too.
Yeah.
What are some of the other teams that you are sponsored by?
Sure. I shoot for Federal Premium Ammunition, Trijicon. I work a lot with American outdoor brands like Caldwell, Tipton, and Wheeler. I have a very good relationship with Filster, and I represent CCW Safe. So
A
those
lot
are my
of
people.
a lot of fairly well-known names there.
Fairly well known, yes, definitely. It's, but honestly, this industry is so great. It's one of the things that I think is very unique about our industry is, at the end of the day, even though we're all competing with each other, whether it's coming out with the latest and greatest firearm or piece of gear, or on the range in a match, there's still this underlying goal of freedom and the Second Amendment, and making sure that we maintain a basic level of rights, and that it universally unites us. And so it's not like being a part of the potato chip or the soda industry, where they just want to stuff you, right, with whatever they're selling. We have like an underlying goal throughout all of it. So that's a really neat thing.
Yeah, a lot of the other people I've talked to in the outdoor industry, whenever they've come on, they're like, yeah, the outdoor industry really is a giant family. And every time we go to the SHOT Show, the NRA annual meetings, any of the big trade shows, it's like a family reunion almost.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't matter if you're on the, working for a different company or a different organization. It's like a big reunion.
Yeah. Um, I had a question and then it slipped my mind. It was there and then it was gone. Oh, of all the competitions that you shoot and all the different types of competitions that you shoot, what are some of your favorites?
Oh, that's a tough one. I really enjoy harder competitions. So I feel like some of my favorites have been the hardest matches out there. So B&T Cup is obviously up there. The IPSC World Shoot is obviously very challenging. That happens once every 3 years, so it's kind of like our Olympics. And it can make it as hard or as easy as you want, but at the end of the day, shooters are shooters, and as we just mentioned, it's like family when you go to shoot a match. So even if the match isn't the best match in the world, you still get to hang out with some of the most awesome people. So I don't know. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't, I highly recommend it.
And I know you shoot a lot of different firearms because you also review firearms. You look at some of the new stuff that some of your sponsors come out with. What are some of your favorite ones that you currently own that you compete with?
Oh gosh. So obviously the M&P platform is fantastic, and I've shot that probably the most over the past 10 years in production and production optics division. So, it's a 5-inch M&P Pro Series or Performance Center gun is always going to be a favorite of mine. I'm a 1911 girl at heart, so so where what I learned on, and I love the 1911 platform. But I think what I love most about what we're seeing in the industry right now is, that we're so flooded with 9mm polymer frame guns that we're really starting to see some exciting stuff come out between lever actions and bolt action guns and different revolvers that we may not ever have seen in different calibers. So I have the best job in the world because I get to use all of these things, even if I'm not competing with them. It's a ton of fun.
What are some of the new products that are coming out or that have come out that you're really, really excited about?
So the Model 1854 from Smith & Wesson is a lever action 44 in 44 caliber, and I just got mine last week, and I am already like planning all sorts of fun things to do. It's so weird because for me, firearms are tools, right? When I look at it, I'm like, okay, how can I win with that? What can I do with that? Blah blah blah. But with this gun, like, wow, I could go hunting hogs with this thing, or I could just go shoot some weird. Maybe I could recreate some Annie Oakley shots with this and 44 mag. That would be crazy, right? And so I get all these like fun ideas, just to try something new and have a little fun in the range too. It's good to have fun in the range. It's not good to only work on the range. So I'm
That's
grateful for
true.
those opportunities. Yes.
Do you still hunt or have you not had as much time to hunt since you compete so much?
So I do still hunt. I haven't had as much time. Most of my hunting experience is sitting in a blind or in the field watching my daughter hunt now, which is even more exciting than pulling the trigger yourself. You can't wait for that to happen for you. But yeah, she's the one who mostly brings home the bacon. we just get to watch, and it's a really neat thing. It's full circle of what my father must have felt like when I get to see my daughters shoot or my daughters hunt. I now understand why he was so giddy and weepy all the time and just, so excited for it all, because it's really, really a neat thing.
Yeah, Sophie already like Wes will wake up and go duck hunting or something in the morning or go on a deer hunt and leave like the night before or something because the drive, the distance. And I'll just be sitting on the sofa, feeding the baby first thing in the morning. And she'll wake up and come running down the hall and go, "Where's dad?" And I'm like, "Dad went, duck hunting or dad went deer hunting." And she's like, "I want to shoot a duck." And so we've been like, anytime he brings something home, we'll let her see it and we'll talk her through. Like he shot an antelope and he brought the whole thing home, like the whole
Mm-hmm.
antelope, gutted obviously, but the whole body. He was able to bring just the whole thing. And it was so interesting watching her look at that and kind of process and trying to talk her through what had happened
Yeah,
because she's seen antelope standing out in the field,
sure.
but she's never seen one up close.
Right.
So, like, for her to be able to pet it and touch it and see, Dad pulled its insides out,
Yep.
and she kept saying, like, oh, if we take it to the doctor, will it get better? And we're like,
Oh,
no, it's
no.
not gonna get better. And
Yeah.
then we had her watch us, like, hang it up in the shed and skin it out and start, taking the quarters off. And it was really interesting to watch her process that. Because you can always tell when she's really thinking about something.
Yeah.
And it's so great to show her that at such a young age, and that she already wants to go
Yeah, no, that's
go
great.
shoot with Dad.
Yeah. One of my favorite hunting memories, I had shot a whitetail buck, and my husband brought my oldest out, who she was like 3 years old or so. And it's in the field, or field dressing it, and then she comes down and she looks at it, she goes, look, Dad, it has sausage in it. Because she loved venison sausage, and she's like, oh, this is what, whatever. And so it's funny to see what they think, and how they process things.
Yeah, we have her involved in the processing as well. She sits at the table while Wes and I are, butchering everything out and separating out steaks and everything. And so funny because she'll help me put the bits in the grinder. Like, we don't
Yep.
let her put her hand in, but she can put them in the tray.
Yep.
And it's just so funny because after it's all in the bowl, all ground up, she'll, like, stick her hands in it and play in it almost like it's sand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she keeps making cakes. So she'll, like, take a handful of it and make a cake.
There you go. Fry that stuff up. And then you really have a cake, a meat cake.
Yep. Yep. It's great watching her, and I can't wait to see her, go hunt for the first time, and kind of see her process what happens. Like, oh, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that when you're hunting, it's not just about the end result. It's also that process that you have to go through of, when I pull this trigger, I am ending a life to feed my family. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see how she processes that. Because I feel like you go one of two ways. You're either like, this was great and I'm ready to do it again, or it kind of hits you emotionally and you're like, I'm not sure if this is for me.
Yeah, no. Or it's definitely a very personal thing.
It is. It definitely is. Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
I
my
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. It was so great catching up with you and chatting with you.
Likewise, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me this week on the Kat Haas Outdoors Podcast, and I can't wait to chat with you all again. See you soon.